So I'm walking across this high knob here, and it just screams bedding, and it goes downhill in every direction. And I find a few beds up here right by this big oak tree that fell down, and I thought this would be a great example to show guys what you're really looking for when you're starting your hinge cutting project. So what we have here is we got a big red oak that came down. The trunk is on the other end, and it fell down this way. And then we got this one right here that snapped off and fell down that way. Looks like this one came down first several years ago. This one just recently came down. We still have leaves on it. So if you really wanted to create a great bedding area in here, what I would do is come in here with a real small chainsaw, and I would cut these branches out, okay? And just clean this out. Make it like a nice clean little bedroom. You got some overhead cover right up here. And then if you cut all this out and just toss it off to the side, or maybe add to the brush pile, right? And just clean this out. And then you'd probably want to cut an opening over there to allow these deer to go out. Maybe cut an opening over in here to allow the deer to go out. But then this will become a bedroom, and then they can get in from right here. This is an easy way to get in and out, obviously, but they will definitely bed right up in here. They'll definitely bed along this big log. They'll definitely bed along that log, but they got to have clean ground, right? I mean, we can't just leave trash on the ground. So that's some of the detail work that guys have to do, but that is some high value work. But now, before you do that kind of detail work, what I would do is I would take that maple that's right there, and I would drop that maple right on top of this brush pile. I would probably take some, we got a little white oak right here. I would probably drop that on there. There's a white oak right there with the leaves on it. I would take that one and drop it right on here. So I would start adding to this brush pile. We got a couple of maples over there that could come this way and really create this canopy overhead. And then after you got a lot of these trees dropped on top of this old deadfall, then that's when you want to come in and do your detail work. And so the fact that these trees are going to land on this big downfall, it's going to keep those other trees that you just hinged alive a lot longer, because the heads are not going to be smashed into the ground. And it's actually going to give these smaller trees a softer landing when it lands on this brush pile. So what I want to do too is I want to walk around, and well, we got a bed right here. So, you know, this is just a no-brainer spot for deer to lay, because it is up on higher elevation. And no matter where you are in the country, deer are going to want to bed high. But looks like we had a deer laying right there last night. But you could see this is a big, huge piece of structure that these deer want to lay by. Because if you look around, look at this, is nothing but just a flat top of nothingness. So it's just wide open. You know, the deer are going to have to keep their head on a swivel and look 360 around them if they're bedding over here. But if they're bedding up along this big log here in this deadfall, they can use that as a backstop, and now they only have to look in one direction. And so with the wind coming from behind them, coming over their back, looking the same way that they're facing, they can smell what's behind them, and they can see what's in front of them. So it's a very safe scenario for them, and they don't have to keep their head on a swivel. So now what I want to do is walk on the other side of this big deadfall. And I want to show you some of the things that I see quite a bit when I go to properties to walk for a habitat plan, or even do some hinge cutting for landowners. And that is, a lot of landowners will come in and do a hinge cut project, but they'll cut the small trees first, right? And then they never end up getting the big trees cut. And then the smaller trees, they just suffocate and they die. And the reason why is because they're not getting enough sunlight, because the bigger trees were not cut first. So right over here, we have some smaller trees that were hinge cut. Now, you know, the landowner's not here with me, so I can't ask him if this was for bedding or if it was for a travel corridor, if he's trying to lead deer through an area here. But I'll just show you what we have. Is we have a small maple that's about 3 to 4 inches in diameter. We have another small maple. We have another small maple right here. We have a few over in there. We got this one there. So I don't know, there's probably a dozen small maples in that, you know, 3, 4, 5 inch range. And none of these are actually going to live because they're just starving for sunlight. So instead, what should have been done is, you know, these trees this size for sure got to come down, and I would even start, you know, with a big tree this size. These are the trees that have to come down first. This is going to be your foundation, much like that deadfall over there will be your foundation, right? So after this one comes down, you hinge cut this, and being a white oak, it's probably going to stay attached. It's going to stay alive. And then that way, then you can start hinge cutting these smaller trees on top of it. Now, we do have some other trees in here, like a black oak. We got this big black oak right here. And you can see we got, you know, it's a darker bark. It's a big tree, and this thing is probably not going to hinge. 95% chance it's going to snap off, it's going to break off. It's probably going to barber chair if you don't put a face cut in it, right? The notch in front. And because it's kind of leaning to the south here, yeah, it's probably going to barber chair, and that's a really dangerous situation. So even before I cut that nice white oak back there, I'm looking for what trees are not going to hinge, and I'm going to take those down first because I want to open up the canopy at the end of the day, right? And this one's going to have to come out, this big black oak, because it's got a big head on it. And if I cut this one after I cut some of the better hinging trees, you know, these are going to land right on those hinge cuts and smash them all. So these got to come down first. Now, you can see we have 3 big black oaks right over there. Those are going to come down first. I'll leave the other ones standing. And then I'll go over to the white oaks. Now, you're wondering, man, you're going to cut a white oak down? Are you serious? I mean, those are great acorns. Well, I mean, if you look around, we got white oaks everywhere. Over here, over there. We got like 3 of them right over there. We got a whole bunch right over here. So, I mean, there's plenty of white oaks on this property. And, you know, this one right here is going to want to fall toward that black oak over here. So I would take that black oak down first, get it out of the way, and then I would come in here with some of these smaller maples right here in front, and I would probably just cut those halfway through just so that they don't fall. And then that way I'm going to come back to this big white oak, and then I'll cut this one to fall on those maples that are cut halfway through. And the maples will fall over with the white oak, but the maples are going to slow that white oak down and make them come down even slower.
Oh yeah. Woohoo! That was pretty sweet.
Instant sunshine. And that's really the key to successful hinge cutting, is how slow can you get these big trees to come down. I mean, it's almost to the point where, you know, when you get really used to it and you kind of understand, you know, distances between trees and everything, you can actually hinge cut some of these trees and have them scrape another trunk on the way down to really slow it down. And if you can get a soft landing, boy, that's when you're really going to have a lot of success hinge cutting. So anyway, I'm going to get out of here, and I got a long walk back to the vehicle. But hopefully this has helped you guys a little bit on knowing how to cut your hinge cut bedding areas. And if you got anything out of this, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next video. There she goes.
That's beautiful.
Oh,
Love
man.
it.
Way too much fun.